Larissa, really appreciate the fact that you've come and once again assisted us with our process. Really looking forward to hearing from you. The floor is yours. You've got your mute on, Lisa. Well
done. Okay. Yes. Can you hear and see me okay?
Perfectly.
Okay, kia ora. As the Catlins Coast Incorporated project coordinator, on behalf of Catlins Coast, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of our submission. As you will note from our submission, the Catlins Coast operates using the Catlins Community Tourism Strategy 2016 to 2026, from which an implementation plan was derived. To help deliver some of the identified projects in the strategy, we endeavour to work alongside and in partnership with a number of organisations from the local communities, community groups, businesses, iwi and relevant government organisations and departments. The Catlins Coast is unique in that it covers both Southland and Clutha districts of the Catlins. Some of the focus, aims and objectives of the Catlins Coast is to protect the natural environment and cultural resources of the Catlins, enhance education of the Catlins in terms of those who visit it, and be responsible for promoting the Catlins Care Code. Some of this is achieved through various means such as interpretation panels and Catlin Coast resources. I speak specifically to the resources of our A3. We've got an A3 map here, which I'll just hold up there. And also we've got a wee brochure there as well, which isn't really showing very clearly, but that's our brochure as well. So those are just a couple of the Catlins Coast resources that we have. So we have a brochure website and the A3 tear-off map. The resources are a standalone resources and are addressed as such in terms of their development, the review and funding for each. Although it is important to point out, given the importance of the care codes and the message it conveys, it is incorporated on our what we call the tear-off map, but I'll refer to it as the map through this presentation, which is also included in the brochure as a pull-out feature, as well as being a standalone resource. The Clutha District Council have already kindly approved a grant for the care code per annum for the from the last long-term plan 218 to 220, which is very much appreciated. The Catlin Coast are now looking for some financial support for the tear-off map or the map. The map is widely utilised throughout the Catlins by visitors, local community and businesses, and also in times of emergencies, as is proven to be invaluable as seen in the recent flooding in the Catlins, as supported by the letter of support from the Papadawai Volunteer Rural Fire Brigade, which was included as part of the submission. The resources are reviewed on an annual basis, which includes a consultation process involving the local community, and the resources can also be accessed on the Catlins Coast website. But given Wi-Fi is not always accessible in the Catlins, it is important to have hard copies of the resources, which are available and distributed through the Catlins. Advertising in the resources generates some funding towards them, which assists with some of the costs, such as the development, printing and project coordinator costs. Given the current situation with COVID-19, we believe we must continue to generate the resources for the benefit of the Catlins community, wildlife and environment. During these unprecedented times, the business income is anticipated to be negatively impacted as we move forward out of COVID-19. Thus, the current financial support from advertisers may well be less than from previous years. Having the map and brochure reprinted and circulated will help set us up for next visitor season when we come out of COVID-19 as the situation settles and normal life resumes as best it can. We would appreciate the Council considering financially supporting the map, from which we initially requested a sum of $2,000 towards some of the costs, which are highlighted in the budget provided as part of the submission. However, the budget was set before the COVID-19 pandemic. Thus, we believe the budget will now change in terms of anticipating a reduced number of businesses advertising on the map, therefore less income. So we are unsure at this point in time of the submission if it is possible to request additional financial support to that of the $2,000 initially requested. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lisa. Questions, councillors? Councillor Volweiler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Lisa, how long, so Bruce Volweiler here, how long do you anticipate or what sort of numbers of maps would you print, and how long do you anticipate them lasting for?
Well, to give you an example, we were wanting to print from the last year for this season that's just gone, the visitor season. We wanted to print that 1,000, but due to budget constraints, we actually only printed 700, and currently we only now have 100 left of those. So they fly out the door as soon as they're pretty much printed. So we're hoping to do 1,000 for the next round, for the next visitor round, if that answers your question.
No, thank you. Another question, I guess, are there economies of scale when printing more, or where would those economies of scale kick in?
Could you clarify, sorry?
Well, so you say you printed a 700 last time. Do you get them at per map cheaper if you print, say, 1,000?
Yes, that's correct. So the higher volume of print, obviously it does work out cheaper, which is why we try to go to the higher end of print, because then it does work out cheaper, yes.
Right. And also, to the maps, are there many amendments to the maps made between printings? Or
yes, there are, which is why we review it annually, because we do have changes and we do improvements as well. Things like when we've got road surfaces that might be tar sealed that weren't before, we might have some more services that offer some new options, such as telephone, Wi-Fi, etc. Some places close, some new places open, so that's why we review it annually, and it just refines it each time we do that. And it also gets buy-in from the community, because it gives them an opportunity to give some feedback of what they believe it should be looking like.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Payne, followed by Herbert and then Foster.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Welcome, Lisa. Good to hear from you, and hope everything's going all right down in Kaka Point.
Thank you.
I've picked up on a couple of things there about the maps for a start off. Are they dated, and can they carry over for a following year if you print them? That's the first part of my question.
Yes, we do. We try not to have waste, if you like.
Cool.
So the maps, so in particular, we don't usually get many left. But if we do, because when we distribute them to some of the services, some of the restaurants, or some of the services like Foursquare and so forth, they will take a supply of them, and they will only ask for a new supply once their original supply has diminished. So they may well have a bit of an overlap there from old to new, if you like. But I mean, they're not that dated that they're not going to be serviceable. So it's only just fine-tuning them all the time.
You don't actually put a 2019.
Yes, we do. There is a map.
Oh, right.
There is a date on it. Yes, for sure.
Yep.
We always do a date on it.
Okay. And just the second part that I picked up on there was you mentioned about maybe there's an opportunity for some extra funding. And I read through your submission, and I looked at the Community Committee Administration Fund, and maybe that's an avenue for you.
Yes, we do that. We actually do that as well, Ken. Yes, we get the 300, and that's wonderful that we do that. It's a 300, and the council, Clutha District Council, have granted us that on an annual basis.
Nice, because I can see moving forward in these uncertain times that administration and actually doing a bit of extra work is going to be very, very important to kickstarting the economy down in the Catlins. So
absolutely, yes, and that's that. Thank you for that. Yes.
No, thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Herbert, followed by Foster.
Oh, that's me, is it? Thanks. Hey, hi, Lisa. John Herbert here. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, John.
Good, good. Hey, just a quick clarification on your budget there. You've got in kind at 90 hours comes in and out. I was just wondering that's one question, what that is. And kind of wondering how you deal with your losses there. You've got a $5,000 loss, $5,500 loss there. How does that get dealt with on an annual basis?
Yeah. So the in-kind is trying to recognise the volunteer kind in terms of all the volunteer work that goes in. So you've got project coordinator cost, which is the paid position, which
Yep.
you'll see that there's 80 hours there. And then the in-kind, because there's a lot of work behind the scenes in terms as part of the consultation, as part of dealing with the printers and the distributors alongside the project coordinator. So that really is just giving an indication of the time that the volunteers of the Catlins Coast put into this particular project, as they do with all the projects. And in terms of the deficit, what we do there is there's an anticipation that we do get more people that advertise, because that's what generates the fund. So hopefully that's what we look to, and or if there is too much of a deficit, we have to print less copies, which reduces the actual cost then.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Councillor Foster.
Hi, Lisa. Mel from Lawrence here. Just a question whether the map is available electronically or if you have a QR code for them.
Yes. Yep. So the answer is yes to both of that. So the resources are on our Catlins Coast website, easily accessed, and that's the brochure, the map, care code. And also we always do have the QR on it, but as indicated, the Wi-Fi isn't, access isn't always good down the Catlins, which is why we like a hard copy available.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Mel. Now, I noticed that Steve's got his hand up, our CEO, but also Dane, there's an arrow on yours. Is that a question that you have as well? I'll take that as a no. Steve, you had a question?
No, Steve. No, Brian.
Thank you. Lisa? Sorry, Steve.
Thanks, your worship. Sorry, Lisa, just a quick question, just following up on what you were talking about. And I don't think anybody asked it, but you were mentioning the original submission had a $2,000 request, and you were talking about now potentially wanting some more. Were you able to quantify that?
Yes, because it was just really a question. As indicated, because of the COVID-19, there's an anticipated thought that we may not get as many businesses advertising, which is what helps generate some of the income towards the cost of the map. And I say that because already we've had one or two pull out of our website advertising, because we were actually going through that round as well. We haven't as yet with the tear off map, but we haven't actually started that process yet in terms of asking who would wish to advertise for the next year. But from what we've heard back from the website, there's an anticipation there. So therefore income is going to be reduced, but we're still wanting to keep those numbers up, because as indicated, the visitors to the Catlins, potentially already we have 70% of the visitors are actually domestic visitors anyway, so we're not anticipating too much of a drop. Obviously the international may well drop, but the domestic actually may well increase now, given the scenario that might be that people travel within New Zealand, so therefore we'll see more of New Zealand rather than internationally. So that's why, anticipating the drop, we thought maybe if we could ask for a little bit more, because we're already running in a deficit anyway.
Yes, just for the council decision-making process, though, Lisa, it's they like numbers, which you.
Oh, okay, right. So maybe 3,000 as opposed to the 2,000.
Oh, no, thanks. That's the sort of clarity that I was looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Foster, you still have your hand up. Do you have another question?
Sorry, no.
Are there any more questions for Lisa? If not, Lisa, can I say on behalf of the council, we really appreciate the work that you and your group do. these are challenging times down, for any tourist operator, and your work's more important than ever. So all the very best. I have taken heart in discussions that I've had in recent days with central government around their thinking of the recovery phase as such. And the interesting figure I have back was that while the tourism to New Zealand is worth $14 billion, New Zealanders spend $16 billion overseas. So if we can just scoop for ourselves what has been going to other countries,
Yeah.
hopefully, while we all know that it's a challenging time, maybe there are some optimistic signs on the horizon.
He's hoping.
Thank you for your presentation, and we really appreciate your assistance.
Thank you all for your time, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Lisa. All
Thanks,
the
Lisa.
best. Keep safe.
Bye.
Councillors, we now have David Cooper and Simon McAtamney from Federated Farmers on page 44 of the first booklet. Welcome, David and Simon. Where's Simon?
Thank you, Your Worship. I've proven less capable than Larissa at organising this. Simon's about to jump on, but he may just be slightly late.
I'm
So-
sure that you're more than capable, David, so the floor's yours.
I'll try and live up to that expectation. Thank you, Your Worship. And also thank you to council staff, as you've said, for organising this, including giving us a bit of a quick lesson on Zoom. As you know, my name's David Cooper, Policy Advisor for Federated Farmers based in Dunedin. Simon McAtamney, who you'll be well aware of, is shortly going to jump on. Okay, we appreciate you've read our submission, so we'll just summarise our points as a basis for discussion. And when Simon gets on, he may provide more specific views as a ratepayer and resident. In terms of the proposed rates increase, the draft annual plan proposes an increase of 5%. This was drafted before the COVID-19 result and lockdowns and the impact on the economy. And we've been really heartened by comments by yourself, Your Worship, and also Council, that you're considering a freeze on rates increases for the year ahead. We appreciate a lot of the drivers for these additional costs are outside of Council's control. You're getting additional responsibilities from central government, and you have to upgrade and maintain your infrastructure. If you don't do that, then you'll have to be paying more for that infrastructure in the future. But we think a rates increase for this year is a priority. It not only reduces the rates bill for ratepayers at an important time, but it also sends a strong signal to your community that you understand this is not business as usual. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Given next year is a long-term plan year, we consider there is scope to park some of the proposed spending and to have another look at this over the next year. Based on the information provided in the draft annual plan, 2 areas where councils could focus are proposals to increase employee expenses and capital expenditure, which is focused on improving levels of service rather than maintaining. We encourage you to focus on those areas as you consider those rates increases. At the moment, central government has come out with a requests for spade-ready capital investment, and we would encourage council to consider us putting forward some information to central government to contribute to the capital costs for upgrades to water schemes in the district. You may already have done this with Local Government New Zealand or directly, but we would, if needed, support council in providing that information to government with the view to getting some capital investment from central government, particularly given there are standards imposed by central government. There's a strong argument for it, and it would also provide employment for the district as we come out of COVID. Clutha War Memorial upgrade. We asked our exec members what they thought about the Clutha War Memorial upgrade or the development of a new Clutha community hub. The first being option 1, the second being option 2. We appreciate option 2 as council's preferred option, but we have some concerns, and the farmers within your district we've talked to have similar concerns around the cost of option 2 and a more basic question around whether there needs to be a new facility of the type proposed, given the existing facilities in the district and given demand for those facilities. In particular, the Cross Recreational Centre provides similar facilities to that which would be proposed for the new Clutha Community Hub. And a key question we had is whether there's going to be sufficient demand for two facilities in a practical level. And if there is sufficient demand for the new facility, how this may impact funding for the cross recreation facility, the existing facility. So we propose supporting the Clutha War Memorial Hall upgrade, but it would also be worth considering parking the proposal, looking at again at the business case for the new facility, and assessing existing and likely future demand for the new Clutha Community Hub prior to proceeding. And again, as it's a long-term plan next year, that might provide a good opportunity to have a more robust discussion. Sewage and wastewater infrastructure. Again, I'm well aware that you will be well aware of some community issues around existing infrastructure, and potentially contradicting myself by saying this is an area we want to see more investment in. But again, just signalling it might be useful to have a discussion around potential upgrades and seeking some funding for central government as well as you lead up to the long-term plan. That's it from us. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission. If Simon hasn't jumped on yet.
No, I have sneaked on.
You have? Or do you want to add to that, please, Simon?
Yeah. Yeah, hi. Sorry, it's not Camille McAtamney on. It's actually Simon McAtamney. But yeah, no, I just helped David work through that submission, and yeah, and there was a couple of members were quite concerned about the rates increase for the Clutha Hall and just how far it should go. Most of being a Clutha resident, I'm certainly in agreement that the hall certainly needs upgraded and to the standard of the other halls. But we're not convinced that it needs all the extras. And particularly also to note that there's some other very good venues in Clutha for meetings. I only went to my first meeting ever a week before the lockdown at the Clutha Hall in my life, and yet you'd be the Rec Centre, Rosebank Lodge, Town and Country. There's always other meetings on there. So yeah, but Clutha does need a decent hall for a big events. And there's also question marks too. The $7.5 million to be raised in the community. We also wondered whether, especially in these what will be very troubling times after the lockdown in the next several years, is if the $7.5 million could be raised, so there are actually far better alternatives for that money to be spent on. Because a lot of things are going to be very, very tight. So yeah, just as an example, too, that being a farm with multiple blocks, our farm will be paying $300 a year in total contributions to if we were to do a full upgrade of the hall. So over 30 years, it would be nearly $9,000, and our farm only has 2 households. And being in Clivevale, the hall we use is primarily the Clutha Valley Community Centre too. So yeah, just a few comments, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you for that, David and Simon. If I could, just before I go to councillors for questions, I'll just a couple of clarifications. Our draft proposed increase was 3.61%, I believe, not 5%. And the alleviation of rates that we've discussed at the moment are for the 4th period instalment, which is coming up soon. We haven't actually set in stone what we're doing. That's obviously part of the annual plan process for next year. And the final one was, take your point on the sewage and the like infrastructure around the Spade Ready Fund. it has to be over $10 million, and I do believe that we're looking at bundling some packages up. I see that our CEO has got his hand up, so I'll throw it over to him. He may be able to enlighten us. Steve.
Yes, Your Worship. It's just something we actually haven't informed the council about yet. We'll be doing that later today, David and Simon. But we basically put our hand up for a lot of things through that Crown Infrastructure Partnerships, including a lot of infrastructure as well. But we are like a lot of the other councils around the country that have done exactly the same, and we certainly put our hand up alongside everybody else.
Thank you, Steve. I'll now open up for questioning. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Payne. Sorry, Ken, you're on mute.
Sorry, guys. Just working with technology. Thank you, Your Worship, and welcome David and Simon to here today to speak to your submission. Look, I've read through the submission and my heart's pretty close to this project. I just wondered whether the federated farmers have, obviously you've called for having another look at the business plan. So the question is, have you actually had a read through the our business plan and the feasibility study? There are a couple of major documents, 54 and 64 pages respectively, and just and I'm just trying to work out whether the measurements objective or whether you've actually or subjective. So that's probably my question.
Yeah, we've had a quick skim read, and as you say, it's a fairly robust business case. We're just wondering again whether there is sufficient demand going forward, particularly given the potential reduced sort of traffic that's going to occur. And again, I think our position is let's just have a re-look at it leading up to the long-term plan.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, Ken. Over to Councillor Cowie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Simon, David. My question's not sort of for you two gentlemen. It's back to Stephen Hill, and I know, Simon, you're particularly interested in water schemes over at Clydevale, particularly the Balmoral ones. So my question to Steve is your application for funding, does it involve that particular water scheme?
Yeah, thanks, Jules. I think you've got the specifics.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Sorry, guys, I don't have a camera. But Stu, Councillor Cowie, absolutely. We have applied for a water treatment project that is in excess of $10 million across a number of rural water treatment plants that require upgrade. We've also applied for a water capacity project, of which the Waitahuna and the area serviced by that is a very big chunk of that. So those applications went in on Tuesday. At this stage, we didn't have time to go out to everybody, but we will give a briefing to the council later on. And they obviously will be subject to a whole lot of scrutiny and further information through the process. But we have put our best foot forward for those to have a good chance, hopefully, of getting some work going in the district and some improvements on some of those water schemes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Stu. Any further questions, councillors? We're letting these guys off far too easy. Thank you for your comprehensive submission, David and Simon. I really appreciate the fact that you're assisting us in the process. And look, we know that the challenges that we face around this annual plan have a rigour and scrutiny that I've never seen in my 20 years. We take on board your concerns and they'll be added into the overall mix, but we thank you for your input.
Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thanks, team. Okay, we've got Craig Gordon from Sport Otago, who's on page 100 and something. Page 105 of book 1. Are you there, Craig? Yes, Craig is there. So welcome, Craig. Hope you're battling through the storm all right, but look forward to hearing from you. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Your Worship. Hi, everyone. Hi, councillors, staff, media, and everybody else that's listening in. Those who don't know me, I'm Craig from Sport Clutha, the Regional Sports Coordinator. I've also got Dwayne Donovan, who's our Operations Manager, who's also here. He might have a little bit to add on the facilities plan when I talk about that. But look, I just want to start off really by thanking the council for your support over the years with Sport Clutha. I've only been involved this has been my 3rd year, but the impact that the role has in such a positive way in the community with keeping people active and the physical and mental health benefits in the community are unquantifiable. So look, just a big thanks for that and supporting the role. I'll just talk briefly on, I guess, the current situation with COVID and how the landscape's sort of changed a wee bit, where the Sport Otago, we're looking at, with our changing our strategic plan, and also obviously under Sport New Zealand, and that's all gone out the window. So now it's about survival for clubs and sporting organisations, and it's all about grassroots and community, which I see as long-term being, really beneficial for us. But I guess the demands on the role are going to be as high as they've ever been. And it's really about looking after our local community, not so much just post-COVID, but also as we get out into the 2021 financial year as well, and just how sport's going to look as we go through the different alert levels and what we can actually get going in the community with social distancing and so forth. So look, that's all I really want to talk about the Sport Clutha role. If anyone's got any questions or wants to know a bit more about what I do, just feel free to ask at the end. On the facilities plan, I know it's been implemented in Queenstown Lakes and Central Otago, and Waitaki have implemented it, and they're using it a lot, looking at their new recreational centre up there. So that's basically what it is to provide a procedure for assessing projects before council, and give a bit of direction about what should be done and lessons learned. For going forward, we have a steering group which oversees my role, and recently at our last meeting it was raised about an area where they have courts which aren't being used because they're in a state of disrepair, and then a lot of questions come out. Is it worth repairing them? Should they be somewhere else for the community, and et cetera, and those sort of things with the facilities plan could potentially be foreseen and have a lot of benefit, not just for the community but economically as well. So yeah, look, on behalf of Sport Otago, I'd encourage the council to look at incorporating that into the plan, 10-year plan. But that's really all from me. Obviously, the Milton Service Centre I've mentioned in there, which is just going to be a tremendous asset for the Bruce District, and can't wait for that. But that's all from me, really. Thank you.
Dwayne, do you have anything you wish to add?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, councillors. Just like to contribute on behalf of Sport Otago. Craig is a little bit reticent to blow his own trumpet, but I've worked with Mitch, I've worked with Calvin, Tiny, and I've worked with Craig, and we're very, very proud of the work that Craig does down there in the Clutha district. In terms of the facilities plan, we would just like to emphasise that it's a national trend where Sport New Zealand are trying to encourage local government as the major investors in sporting infrastructure to take a more structured approach to it, move away from the squeaky wheel approach, and actually have a long-term plan. It is a cost saving in the long run, because you're going to invest in the right facilities in the right area, and there is a lot of information out there now about trends in sport that will change things, and also demographics. And Sport New Zealand have some really fantastic tools that will allow you to look at what other councils of a similar nature, other councils of another similar nature around the country have succeeded with. So we're not asking you to spend any more money on that, we're just asking you to take a longer term and more consolidated approach that reflects the fact that the Clutha district has a number of towns that will have needs and need to be recognised in the right order and at the right times.
Thank you for that, Dwayne, and also to Craig. So I'll kick off the questioning. I just have one question, please. And my apologies, but I didn't have access to last year's figures. The amount, Craig, that you're asking for, 47,348 plus GST, is that the same as last year, or has there been an alteration?
I believe it's the same as last year. It increased slightly last year, but I believe it's the same.
Thank you. Councillor Ludeman.
Hi, Craig and Dwayne. Just a question on the facilities plan. Is that similar to what the Sport Clutha, the steering group, did many years ago, like could be 10 years ago, where there was a group here in the Clutha district got together and looked at what was required sporting wise? So your facilities plan, is that similar to what that group undertook way back then?
Maybe I can pick that one up, Craig. It's Councillor, thank you for the question. The suggestion is that it is perhaps a little more structured and a little more integrated into what council actually do than perhaps may have been done in the past, so that you as councillors can make long-term decisions confident that they are based on the best information. Of course, it is founded on the needs of the community, and groups like the Sport Clutha Steering Group, schools, those who are working in the community in a number of roles, would be absolutely crucial to getting the feedback. Perhaps one of the main changes, Councillor, might be that you may get information on trends in sport that personally people may not be aware of, because young people may not be on that group, but there are sports that are growing and becoming much more popular, and that's the kind of information that can be brought in externally to add to what you're able to do with your local resources. Okay,
because that group's still quite, it's reasonably active, meeting, 3 or 4 times a year. So it may be that they can kind of join in. It's like a starting point, isn't it?
That sounds like it'll be absolutely essential to talk to them, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Ali. Councillor Herbert.
Yeah, morning, Craig and Dwayne. Thanks for coming along. My question is around the facilities plan, and really how deep are you talking about going with that? Are you talking about looking at every kind of small badminton hall or community hall throughout the Clutha district? Because one of the fears, and look, it's a great idea to know what assets you've got, but as we're slowly centralising everything, which actually means people are travelling further. A lot of those people that are a long way out, if the nearest facility is deemed to be not acceptable or not right for the sport and it gets moved on, they're travelling even further. So my question really is, how deep are you going with this facility plan? Are you looking at every tennis club, squash court in the Clutha district?
So based on the work that's been done in Queenstown Lakes and what Dunedin City are currently working on, the stock take phase of that, the answer to your question would be yes. The council would want to know not only what does the council own and control, but where is sport and active recreation being played? Because obviously there will be some things that fall into the category of recreation rather than what we might call sport. Someone may be hosting, say, yoga classes or something like that. But that doesn't mean that it necessarily means what you said about the centralisation. It could be, for example, as Craig had referred to, down in the Catlins, that when the decision is made there, it involves more than just the school and the Ministry of Education, but the council and the local community might come in and say, well, those are tennis courts, but actually what we could really use is multi-use courts that can do tennis and basketball and netball, and how can we make that work? Or it could be, say, in a small community like Waitahuna, you might look at what could be done to the hall to add more utility to it. It's certainly not the intention to reduce. When Sport Clutha, we're never going to want to cut back on facilities if we can.
No, thank you.
Thank you, John. CEO Hills next, but Ali, you've still got your hand up as well. So, Steve.
Yeah, hi, Dwayne and Craig. Just checking up on that facilities planning that you're doing. Obviously, this year is the last year in preparation for the long-term plan for council. And we are undertaking, amongst a number of reviews, a community facilities review, but I don't think it's, thinking about the terms of reference, I don't think we were concentrating on sport-related facilities. So just in a timing sense, I'm not sure if it fits in with your planning at all, but certainly it would make sense to have the results or the inputs for your facilities planning into the long-term plan process, and not as a submission. I mean that working with staff and the councillors, we have many workshops that are scheduled for this year, and it's an opportunity to feed into, you know, council input and elected member input into the findings, depending on how broad and how long a time frame that you were thinking of.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity, because one of the things we believe is a strength of ours is we can bring specialist expertise to support Craig. So my work, amongst other things, is in spaces and places, which is a very broad classification. So we would be very happy to bring whatever expertise we can to assist. It's definitely got to be driven by the Clutha community. What's being done in Queenstown, what's being done in Dunedin, or anywhere around New Zealand might contribute to the discussion, it might add to the discussion, but ultimately your community has to own it. And timeline-wise, we would work with what the Clutha District Council was working on. We're contributing to you. We want to help you in every way, but we're by no means attempting to dictate this process.
Thank you for that, Dwayne. Councillors, is there any further questions? It looks not. Craig and Dwayne, hey, look, firstly, the one thing that's been really positive that I've seen coming out of COVID has been the amount of people walking their dogs everywhere. There's an absolute throng around us. So you're going to have some fit people coming back. But I wish you well, because there's real challenges. You know, the kids are cooped up, the families are cooped up at the moment. And as always, I'm sure you'll rise to the challenge, and I wish you well. And I thank you for the input that you've given us today and the assistance. So cheers for that, and all the best. Please pass on to your team the appreciation we have for the work that you do around the district.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillors, I'd like to welcome our next team in. We've got Nolene Scott and Catherine Cordaweg from Cross Recreation Centre. Welcome, Nolene and Catherine. Where's Nolene? There's Nolene. Welcome to you both. Floor is yours. Oh, councillors, it's on page 21 of book 1.
And also to welcome Jeff Seymour on behalf of the group as well. He's with us as well.
Welcome back to Council, Councillor Jeff. Slightly different than how we used to do it, but we're getting there.
Good morning. My name's Catherine Cordaweg, for anyone who I haven't met before. I'm the current chair of our Committee of Management for the Cross Recreation Centre. So yeah, good morning to our Mayor, our councillors, council staff and any other community members listening in this morning. I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission on behalf of the Cross Recreation Centre. So the timing of submissions to the annual plan has seen us right in the thick of this pandemic and a very turbulent and unfamiliar time for everyone, as we all know. As we alluded to in our written submission, we anticipated that our familiarity of this situation 3 weeks on would be quite different to what it was on day 1 of New Zealand's lockdown, which is when we submitted our written submission. So while that written submission did give you some background on some key things that have been going on for us in the past 12 months, I thought I might use this time today just to let you know some updates from us from recent weeks. So at the time we popped that submission through, the doors to our facility were closed. We'd also experienced reduced income in the weeks leading up to lockdown as events started being cancelled and directives started coming through from sporting organisations up the chain, such as Netball New Zealand and a few other places. The first week of lockdown for us was very much, I call it a siege mode mentality. We were securing the facility, making sure our staff were safe, turning off the gas, setting people up to work from home, applying for the wage subsidy, the list goes on, all of those sorts of things. Our manager, Nolene, has spent many an hour logged into lots and lots of webinars that have been going on, just trying to gain as much information as possible to help with our management of this situation. We have also, as you can imagine, spent a lot of time looking at our budgets. We've really stripped things back. Stripped back our books as much as we can and done some real fine-tooth combing of our cash flows and really looked at our cash flow in the eyes of what are the absolute essential non-negotiables. And that looked at things like insurance, compliance costs for building warrant of fitness, our basic electricity charges that we'll be experiencing, and of course wages. So we do feel fortunate that the government's wage subsidy scheme is covering most of our staff wages for the 12-week period. However, not quite all. There is a bit of a shortfall still that we're covering. And our compliance expenses, interestingly, are actually increasing again. So in our next budget for next year, we have had to increase our building warrant of fitness compliance expenses by nearly $3,000, and that's just due simply to a new quarterly check that we need to do on our heat pumps. So that's seen our total annual expenses just for compliance up to the $10,000 mark, which is quite significant. Another thing, we're also in the process of discussions with our lessees. So at this stage, kind of as we speak, they're our sole source of income at the moment. But of course, that's one of the topics that's been on everyone's lips and in the media and that sort of thing, that they, like everyone else, are also experiencing financial difficulty. So our building's closed, so are their businesses. So of course, our discussions really do have to have that balanced approach around the fact that we as an organisation need to survive, but so do they. As a business and not-for-profit organisations, we've got 4 long-term tenants there. Also, we did mention in our submission that we are fortunate that the foresight of our organisation does see us hold some financial reserves. So our emergency fund, or rainy day fund, we call it. However, the timing was almost absurd that these reserves did get earmarked kind of just before all this happened to fill the gap for our building extension project. So we thought that was our rainy day, but how wrong were we there? So we're really conscious that the planned completion of that building extension really is a significant and important piece of work for many of our local businesses who will be planning on that income once they can pick up their tools again and get back to work. And we've just been talking the last few days that it really would be sad if it did get to the point that we had to put the completion of that build on hold due to cash flow problems, when it would actually impact quite a lot of our local businesses as well, not just us. In recent months and weeks, we've been pleased to be able to provide our facility and some of our staff to help with civil defence services. So for the welfare centre that was set up in February during the flooding, and also in the last couple of weeks for the drive-through flu clinic. So it's really heartening for our staff and committee as well to know that even in times of crisis, the facility is still able to contribute really positively to our community. And I guess the big unknown for everyone at the moment is how long will things be impacted? How long will this go on? From what we know at the moment, we anticipate that it won't be until at least probably alert level 2 that we would be able to start operations again and start seeing some income streams return. And of course, being operational and being back at full capacity are also 2 quite different things as well. So I guess just in conclusion, we probably would just like to reiterate today the point that we made in our submission, that we feel once we are able to get open and back up and running, that this will be a really significant time for us to be there for our community. That this is a time that we are asking for some additional support from council so that we can ensure that we can be there for our community at a time when they would need us most. So I'll just quickly check in with Nolene if she had anything else that she wanted to add before we take some questions.
Thanks, Catherine. Hello, everyone. Just really proud of the community asset that we have, and I really feel that we've really started to grow into new directions, communicating and connecting with our community, like with the flu vaccines and the welfare centre, and the huge growth that we've been been having recently with their walking group, and how that has just become such a vital piece for our elderly and some younger people. But and yeah, that's just one of the things that have got on hold, and that's such a great welfare asset for those people. They all check in with each other every week and look after each other outside of the walking group.
Catherine and Nolene, look, thank you for a thorough and really polished presentation. And it's quite chilling when you look at a business plan that over the last few weeks has been completely turned on its ear, and we sympathise with your plight. If I can start the questioning, please. Now that we're 3 weeks longer into lockdown, there's already the murmurings that level 3 will be sustained for quite a long period. And I look at the figure that you've asked from us. Has there been any consideration to altering the figure?
Are you asking if we need more money?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess kind of every day we've been looking at the budget. Our most recent look at that was for just to really gain a clear understanding for us, so that we can have some discussions with our tenants around their rent and lease of, yeah, if we did strip everything right back as far as we could, how long would our cash flow survive? And just kind of how that discussion might look for our tenants, being fair and equitable to all of them. Yeah, I guess, as I said, we want to survive this, but we really want them to survive this as well. Yeah, almost, yeah, every day that we look at this, we do kind of think, what's going to happen next. And I guess that figure for us as well, and the other thing I'll mention just around the building extension is the kind of the shortfall that we've got at the moment, and the additional correspondence that we'd popped into council just before all of this, just confirming the total cost to complete that build. We really appreciate the financial contribution that council has put in towards that building extension already, and that was earmarked in the plan a couple of years ago, so that we knew that we had that when we were ready to build. So yeah, we did pop some correspondence into council, just clarifying that total amount, and I guess just kind of clarifying what the difference was from the amount that was earmarked at that 50% kind of precedent rate that you use now for community facilities, and then the total build. So there is that little shortfall as well that we're just waiting for confirmation, I guess, from council around that. So that is probably driving us a little bit at the moment as well. If I was to say right now that we needed more money, yeah, it would definitely make things a lot easier. Also understanding that you're probably going to be getting a request from almost everyone that's asked for money in these hearings, that everyone's budgets and everyone's plans have gone out the window in the last few weeks. So yeah, if you're asking me to put a figure on it, we haven't discussed a figure as a committee, but certainly, yeah, that additional money that we had asked for just regarding the extension is probably a significant one for us as well. As I mentioned, just making sure that does get completed is something that's quite important to us.
Thank you. Also, Catherine, in recent weeks, there's been a plethora of support packages put out by central government. Other than the wage subsidy, have you been able to benefit from any of these?
Kind of kept an eye on the, and I can't think of the actual name of it at the moment, I'm sorry, but there may be a time in the near future that we access the small grants just to help with business consultancy services. So for us, just around our planning, potentially some legal stuff, just to make sure that with our leases and our contracts and that sort of thing, that we're gaining the right advice that we need. So that, yeah, that's probably something that we've earmarked. But apart from the wage subsidy, yeah, that's been about it so far.
Thank you, Catherine. Sorry, councillors, I'm hogging the floor. Councillor Herbert.
Yeah, thanks. Morning, Catherine. Morning, Nolene. My question is around the insurance. And I don't think it matters what business or organisation you're in nowadays, it's a rising cost. But and you've alluded to Europe got an increase from 17,000 to 24,000, but I did note 2015 you played nearly 22,000, and then you've had a drop down to 15,000, then back up to 24. You've got quite a peaks and troughs in your insurance costs. So just wondering, trying to get my head around how that's evolved through there.
Yeah.
Presumably change your provider or broker or something that's caused that quite major shifts in costs for you.
I think off the top of my head, and I do have that in front of me, I think that was a timing issue. So our insurance bill at the moment, I think gets billed 3 monthly over June, July, August. However, due to timing of paperwork and that sort of thing, our end of financial year is 30th of June. I'm assuming that from the 2014 year and the 2015 year changeover, that there had been purely just a timing issue of the invoice splits over that time. Back then as well, the insurance was done as a kind of subsidiary through council's insurance package. So again, it was just a bit of an on-billing paperwork administrative thing. I'm fairly sure, I'm fairly confident in that answer, that would have been a portion of 2014's insurance come through to the 2015 year, if that makes sense.
And obviously the reverse happened in 2018 then when it dropped.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was about that time that we undertook a major insurance review as well, which is what we popped in the update there, of just making sure that we were properly insured for the building. Yeah, as we say, being caretakers kind of this facility for the wider community, we found it really important to make sure that we were properly insured, that if the worst was to happen, an earthquake or something, that we needed to make sure that we would be able to be covered.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any further questions, councillors?
Oh, yes, I had one. Sorry, didn't raise my hand.
Councillor Cowan.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Catherine, you mentioned your rainy day money. Now, when I look through your financials, look, and I'm just the farmer sitting here on a rainy afternoon. If I deduct your current liabilities from your cash on hand, I calculated you had 124,000 roughly still cash on hand. So how much is this the rainy day money you refer to?
So 25,000 of that is grant money that we received in a previous financial year from the big foundation, the big trust, sorry, for the extension. So yeah, our rainy day fund is 100. So we have earmarked a fair portion of that for the building extension, potentially up to $80,000. We're just waiting to hear back from one more grant, which was it was a grant that we're not particularly confident in getting, but it was something that we put in for in the hope. Yeah, so if we did need to use 80,000 of that 100, at the time we felt quite comfortable that would leave us with a $20,000 surplus, and then going next year into our 10-year sponsorship agreement phase, that we would be looking to then kind of top that rainy day fund back up, so that we had some reserves sitting there for particularly repairs and maintenance of the things that will be coming up in the future, that we kind of need some money aside for, as well as being responsible employers and being able to pay our staff at times like this when income just kind of disappears. So yeah, when we look at it in the light of the pandemic that we're in now, having a $20,000 reserve fund isn't going to go very far, particularly when we don't know how long these alert levels will be in place for. So
no, thank you. That's a good answer. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Stu. Councillors, any further questions? Team, firstly, can I thank you for such a thorough presentation? And look, I've always, and I know that all the councillors are, we're in awe of the work that you do down there, the enthusiasm, the volunteer input, and just the can-do attitude. So I want to thank you on behalf of the district for that, because it is such a key asset for us. And a lot of what it really comes down to is the people that are involved. So please pass on to your whole team the fact that we appreciate what you do, and we also appreciate the predicament that you're in at the moment. We sympathise with your plight. We take on board what you've said today, and can I just say all the best? It's a ghastly situation for everyone to be in, and not one that you would have ever been able to contemplate in finances. I wish you all the best for the coming year, and I thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Councillors, our next submission is over to Book 2. We've got the Clutha Community Hub, another hard-working team in our district. We've got Dale and Natasha. Is Natasha there? I saw Dale somewhere. There's Dale's face and freeze frame. How are you, Dale? Is Natasha there?
I hope so.
Yes, she is. Welcome to you both. Floor's yours.
Yeah, excellent.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just going to get our presentation up here. Oh. Okay, is that coming through all right?
Yep.
Yeah, excellent.
Kia ora koutou. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Kia ora, Worship, Mayor, Steve, councillors and ladies and gentlemen. It's our pleasure again to be here presenting on behalf of the Clutha Community Hub Charitable Trust and the wider committee our submission in support of option 2 for a new facility. And just want to start by thanking the council for supporting us in what we've achieved so far. I mean, without your funding and support, we wouldn't have been able to progress to where we are. So just that we really appreciate our ability to move as we have.
So yeah, we're probably not going to spend too much time going through much of this because we've done a recent presentation and you're pretty across where we're at. But we just thought we'd do a bit of recap to kind of point out, I guess, the feedback from the community regarding the establishment of this facility.
So basically, we would just want to start with the mandate. As council, you gave us a mandate back in 2017 as a community group to pursue this piece of work, and that was based on our Clutha community consultation, which alone received 420 odd pieces of feedback, and option 2 to investigate the creation of a multi-purpose community and visitor hub at the current hall site ranked number 2 as community priority. So the other thing that showed up in that findings was that there was a good, if you look at the good, it was important that we also didn't decommission what we have. So it was, we don't want to, the community didn't want the facility to be decommissioned. They don't want nothing. So with that as a basis and that forming the annual plan, our community plan. Dale, can you?
Yeah, sorry.
Keep it moving.
Yep. So obviously it's a community-led project. Gone through a bunch of major milestones to get where we are at the moment. There's been around about 5,000 hours of volunteer labour so far to date to get where we are. 3,700 of those were done in the last 12 months to progress the design phase we've just gone through. And there's a significant amount of work behind the scenes as well to start establishing relationships to support the business hub aspect and various other portions of the facility going forward. So I guess a key consideration around the development of this facility was, it was said before, it's not just about replacing like with like. We want to obviously support the existing capability that the existing facility has, but it's about providing some additionality to the district as a whole. That there's a number of opportunities that the local community don't have access to, that those living in a city type environment do, and we want to try and provide some opportunities to the local district to even that out. So again, we've been building on past works as well. So this isn't a new project by any stretch. It's got 20 years of history. There's been analysis of the site from many different facets. And I guess, this is the first time I think where there's actually been a business case to back up the desire and a feasible option come forward.
So after this further community consultation, we undertook a feasibility study with Opta Associates to determine, based on 3 options, what was the most viable and feasible options for the community, not just now and not previously. It's about for generations to come. And it's about how, as a community-owned facility, can that be sustainable? And just listening to the rec centre and all of their considerations they have to make, that's the sort of thing we had to look at in our feasibility study, and what is going to meet the community vision as well as be the most feasible option. So they looked at a compliance upgrade, and that came in at 5 million. A redevelopment utilising the existing structure at 19 and a new build at 20. And they thought the most feasible option was the new build. So we took that through in a piece of mahi to developing a business case, which subsequently followed the feasibility study last year. In May, we presented, these are some of the renders that came out of the feasibility study about a concept that could be. So they're just an artist's impression. The business case was really looking at how, as a community-owned entity, which is the trust we formed for the legal ownership and operations, and we had to look at the case for change. So that was the strategic case. What are all the community groups saying? What are the gaps? What are the needs analysis? All of that sort of thing. We had to show how that new build option optimized the best value for money. And we had to look at the commercial viability of having that, the delivery plan, so how we would achieve that, and looking at the proposed funding model, which included up to 50% funding from council, and that was accepted in principle by you as council in May, June last year. So what that enabled us to do was carry on further works into the design and construction stages. So mid last year, we started to put together a request for proposals out for the design and tender stage. It's a 3-stage process. We got some really high caliber applications back. We narrowed that down to 3 parties for stage 2, which was to produce a concept design and cost estimate. So we started that the last quarter of last year, and it was also a paid work stage, and that was about getting optimal design and input early from these parties. We also looked at a design and build or early contractor engagement partnership, so that we had the builders as well as the designers right from the early stages. So they finished that at the end of February, and we had their presentations the first week of March this year, and then we went through some other works as well to try and mitigate the what we call them preemptive works. It's about mitigating some of the financial costs up front. So we undertook geotechnical testing of the current memorial site to see what ground conditions there are, given that it's on a very old riverbed. The second thing we did was a topical graphical survey to make sure that the boundaries and services and everything were clear. And we also did a traffic impact analysis, which is looking at safe entry into the premises, which will inform the resource consent down the track. But doing these works up front and having that to the stage 2 parties enabled us to mitigate a lot of the design risks, so there's no surprises for the selected party going forward in terms of like foundation design and that sort of thing. They know where they sit. And pleased to say that the geotechnical results were very positive. We could carry on with that site.
So just to, I guess, quickly touch on the investment so far. So a combination of funding. The feasibility study was mostly funded through lotteries, support from CDC. The CDC have obviously contributed to the works to enable us to get to this stage, which has been fantastic. And as you can see, that there's been a significant effort from the trust as well to make sure that the community effort was aligned with the appreciated effort from the CDC to get us to this point. So I guess the outcome of stage 2 was us selecting Clutha Stewart to be our design and construction partner to go forward for the final design and construction of the new facility. They've been fantastic to deal with so far, and we'll just quickly step through some of the concepts that the Clutha Stewart design team came up with out of the stage 2 process.
Are you okay, Dale? We can't see anything. Oh, there we go.
Am I going too fast, am I?
No, you're good, Dale. That's fine.
Okay. So as you can see, they've come up with quite a striking building. We had outlined a pretty specific design brief, which we thought helped encapsulate the requirements of the district. And obviously a key element to that was making sure that the design tied into existing streetscaping. And we wanted something that reflected the community. We wanted a striking facility that wasn't ostentatious. So, it captured your attention, but sat well in the district. And we believe, Clutha Stewart done a fantastic job in actually delivering that in a relatively short time frame, realistically. So I guess one of the things we get quite a bit from the community is around, it's a significant cost just to provide us a new war memorial hall. And I think, just want to touch on the fact that this isn't about replacing like for like. It's about providing opportunity. And, sure, we want to provide first class facilities to match what is already there, but it's also about opening up new opportunities. So, it's about providing a space for the local rūnanga. It's about providing opportunity for the local NGOs to work more effectively and deliver better outcomes for the community. It's about providing alternative job opportunities within the district to make sure that we have things that attract people to the district ongoing, especially at the moment with the change in the agricultural sector. And it's about providing some of the shortcomings currently in the district about, around adequate meeting spaces and bits and pieces for people to be able to effectively do business within the district. And last but not least, I think it's a big important thing to point out. This facility is about honouring what's already been the effort that had been invested by the community in the existing facility. We want to make sure that that's actually honoured and continued into the new facility. You know, it's not about demolishing something that, you know, there's a lot of effort's been put into. It's about taking the principle behind the facility and taking that legacy forward into a new facility which carries on providing the same outcomes for the district going forward. So I guess another aspect around this, you know, we're not just here to put a fancy building on the corner. There's lots of things that are going alongside the actual physical facility design and build itself. We're trying to establish relationships. So we've got a good partnership with Innovation in Dunedin at the moment. They are working with the local polytechs and universities and providing a number of opportunities for youth and those re-establishing themselves back into the workforce. And there's a number of opportunities to be able to leverage some of their programs and actually bring them to the district. And we're looking to push those relationships to the wider kind of startup community, etc. as well. We've had some initial conversations with Coin, Prue Halstead from Invercargill in a similar vein. Unfortunately, the COVID situation kind of stalled that at the moment. But yeah, there's a number of opportunities and relationships we're going to continue to establish and make sure that we have some fantastic new opportunities coming to the district. So the economic impact out of this, so initial business case we put forward, we outlined that the business hub aspect alone was looking to inject $2 million per annum purely into the Clutha local district. As you can appreciate, the flow-on effect from that's going to be quite significant to the wider district as well. So when you take that into consideration, plus the fact that we're going to be delivering an enhanced visitor experience once the tourism kind of sector starts cranking back up again, there's significant opportunities for a substantial amount of money to start flowing into the wider district. So with our construction partner called Stewart, done some projections around what the impact of the construction to the local community will be. This is based on PricewaterhouseCoopers analysis in 2016 in partnership with CIC and Brands. And their estimation is that the construction alone is going to inject somewhere between $37 and $46 million into the local district. And the outcome of this, we're looking around 113 full-time employees. This is a combination of the construction period and purely the business hub at this stage. The business hub alone, we're looking around about 72 full-time roles over the next 10 years as a direct impact of that facility functioning.
We just wanted to point out that this building project under the COVID-19 situation has a significant opportunity to stimulate the local economy even before the COVID-19 situation. It's even more important now because it's about, you know, supporting the local industry, the construction industry. We've got a local partner. But, you know, we wanted to point out, you know, as council, you're already having to do growth projects in the way of stimulating housing, stimulating the industrial area, just through the lack of private investors doing that. And, you know, we think it's local government's role to actually continue stimulating this in these hard economic times, or we're going to risk the long-term growth and populations issues that have been forecast anyway before the economic downturn. What we're doing is we're addressing the lack of opportunities, as Dale's already touched on, and access to modern infrastructure. And we have to do it in our own rural way, which is having facilities under the same roof to be more efficient in their running costs and that sort of thing. You know, we're wanting to promote the better outcomes around social, cultural, and economic well-being. And we think by doing this, you're going to support that ability to build more community resilience. And we just wanted to point out that as local government authority, which you know, under that Act, you've got a requirement to invest and promote and improve community wellbeing. And that's not just through your core services, that's through your economic, your social and your cultural wellbeing lens. So we just ask that you take that into consideration in your decision making.
So just, I guess, to touch on next steps, we've obviously just completed stage 2, which was conceptual design and cost estimation of the facility. There are 2 opportunities to progress to the next stage, and I guess we just wanted to raise, I guess, the funding of that at this point in time. So Calder Stewart, due to the COVID-19 situation, have indicated that they can actually break ground in October 2020 if funding is available. The Trust, in partnership with CDC, are working hard on a funding opportunity at the moment to see if we can expedite that. But to progress to the next stage, there's kind of two steps we can go through. So one is design consolidation, which is about taking the proposal put forward in stage 2. Obviously, this has gone through the wider whole committee and has had a significant amount of feedback come back from that. So the first stage would be, or one option, I guess, to progressing things would be to do a design consolidation, which is taking the plan put forward, taking all the feedback, and going through the process of coming up with a floor plan that we believe will be ready to take to the community for feedback. So that's about reapproaching the stakeholders and the wider community to get some more specific feedback around the proposed floor plan, or to get to full break ground ready or CIC compliance design and plans. We're looking around 886,000. So what are the current risks? I guess the biggest risk we've got at the moment, and it's been a big problem with the project all along in reality, is the funding. We're kind of at the chicken and egg situation, like a number of these large projects where everyone wants 50% funding already achieved before they'll commit. So I guess that's one core issue we still have. As I say, we're working on something at the moment which we hope will alleviate that, but there's no guarantees at this point in time.
But in terms of going to our third-party funders, we can't secure anything until you've got that commitment from the other side. And the other risk is that those funds for those third-party funders will be reprioritised given the current COVID-19 situation and the impacts of the local community services and what it's doing to their operational costs and that sort of thing. So we're already seeing that with reprioritisation of funds, for example, Community Trust of Otago and that sort of thing. So we think that if it's put off now, or even it's going to be a lot harder and a lot more time consuming in terms of funds availability to keep this progressing. We also have flagged in the past that if we wait, there's going to be construction labour force issues given significant projects happening in Dunedin, in Chicago and surrounding areas. So if the longer we wait, the harder it's going to be to get this achieved in a satisfactory time frame. For the Trust, there is no other financially sustainable option for a community-owned facility. By having the components that we have put forward, it allows us to have an option that in theory would run itself. If if we were to take it just to do off of the current hall, the operating costs at, or the income that it generates under the current situation, we just cannot do that. So basically, if this doesn't go forward, we would cease to exist as a community group, because there's nothing really else for us to pursue without funding.
So I guess the other core issue is, as we outlined, you know, in reality, the only other option that you've proposed in the annual plan was to do up the existing building, but in reality, is that actually viable even from the council perspective? Investing $5 million of ratepayers' money for $9,000 per annum return, you know, is that actually viable, and is there actually a likelihood of the facility being demolished full stop? You know, and what impact is that going to have to the community? And what does it signal, more to the point, I guess?
And we just wanted to point out that our Clutha community plan was the first one to be done, and with the key projects flagged. Now, as council, you're going through and doing all of the other communities. They're either in progress or yet to be done. And by, you know, in the consideration that maybe funding is not supported or put on pressure, what does that say for those other projects? It's about keeping the momentum going. So we just wanted to say that we don't want the pressure to be, you know, and that we as a group are applying to the same funding pots all in one go, because it means it's going to be a lot harder for each group to get ahead in their projects. So we just wanted that to be considered. So now the exciting bit, hopefully it works from your end, but we've got a video of a bit of a fly through. So just hopefully it works from your side all right. It is a bit laggy, so you might see it in jumps rather than a streaming video.
Yeah, it may be a fast slideshow instead of a video, but we'll see what happens. Was there any questions at all around?
Just before we head to questions, could you please turn off your screen? I'm running blind trying to check it here. Brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Finch?
Oops.
I think you're on mute, Gaynor.
Microphone. Go on, Gaynor.
Is it off now?
Yep.
Yep. So congratulations to you both, Dale and Natasha. That's an amazing presentation. You've done some wonderful work, and the whole committee. You're to be congratulated on it. My question was just, when do you get started on your fundraising promises from local individuals and things like that? When's that likely to start kicking in, please?
So we've fully relied on the decision from this annual plan process before we can kick anything else off. Our funding plan involves obviously this decision, which in turn, as well as we've been building relationships with the third party funders for some of those significant funders. Once we've got that 50% thing, then we have the grant component to roll out in conjunction with a fundraising plan with the community. So approaching, sort of the higher level sponsorship things right through to the community fundraisers. So that would be after we've got a decision from you in May in terms of, that decision solely dictates where we go next.
Right, it was just a time frame thing that I was wondering about. That's lovely, thank you.
So we'd allowed ourselves May to December. Just
May to December.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's brilliant. Well done.
Thank you, Gaynor. Councillor Herbert?
Yeah, morning, guys. Hey, look, thanks for that presentation, and I agree with Gaynor. And it is really nice to sit here and look at something positive after the doom and gloom we see on the world from a daily basis and hourly basis. My question has probably been answered a little bit by you, Natasha, but I've got a concern, and bearing in mind that the role that council's got to play in this, and actually how we sell this concept now. Given the world we live in now, how we actually sell the concept of spending such a large amount of money to people that are looking at their costs and looking at every dollar they spend and their wage subsidy and how they pay their rates. And we understand that the loan funding there, but how we actually sell that concept now, I think is a real challenge for all of us. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts around that.
Yeah, it is a big concern at the moment. And to be fair, even from our perspective, it's going to be a significant challenge, and and we're the ones driving the project, But I think in reality, we can't really afford to do nothing. We need to stimulate something in the district to make sure that, at the end of the day, that we actually have ratepayers here to pay rates to keep things going and maintain the current infrastructure even. And I think once we get over this hump, people are going to want to go out and do stuff and enjoy interacting again as a community. And I think it's going to be even more important that those facilities exist to make that happen. And there are going to need to be new job opportunities. There is going to be significant unemployment even in our district. And these kind of facilities are the things that drive that new growth and that new opportunity. And I know it's going to be a hard thing to sell to the public at the moment, but as with any of these big projects, you need to be focusing on the long-term gains, not the short-term wins. And in reality, a lot of other districts are looking at 0% rates increases and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, well, that's all very well and fine, but if you don't have jobs being created so people can actually even pay the 0% increase, then there's bigger issues,
I agree. I just get together on this. I just wonder if we should have some sort of some sort of strategic plan going forward to actually sell this concept, given the landscape we now live in. That was all really just, a strategic plan between all of the council and your committee itself to actually have a really good go at getting this out there once and for all, because you don't get a second chance at first impressions. And if we sell this properly once, then we're right. But and I agree with you, and maybe Ken's got a comment, but no, thanks for your comments.
Well, I think,
Absolutely.
Sorry, Tash.
I was going to say, we're in the middle of a strategic plan, but as you said, the current situation changes how we approach this, and it's even more important that we get that right collaboratively. And the way we do that is about how we engage with the community and get their feedback along this journey in the process. And we're only going to build on what we've been doing. This project isn't solely focused on one area or one sector or one portion of the community. So it's really about getting out there and sharing out, answering questions. And that's going to take all of us doing that. And we're in the position now, we've got a concept that's actually something tangible, so that those visual images that you've seen today is the public sharing of them. We've got them ready to go on our website and Facebook after this, because that's just where we're at in the process. So going forward, it's about, getting the engagement through those concepts. And then as Dale talked about earlier, the floor plan and getting the real buy-in around, is that going to work for that part of the community?
And I guess just to touch on that, John, too, it has been a big concern of ours how this is going to be taken in this current environment, and it's to be fair, that's why we haven't got anything on Facebook yet, even though the decision was made, a couple of weeks ago, because it is really important. We don't want people thinking we're just throwing money into a hole that's never going to eventuate and that kind of thing. So I think you're right. It does really need to be a collaborative approach on how this goes to the community, and how we sell the benefits, I guess, because at the end of the day it is an investment, and there are going to be significant investments in the long term. It's just as you say, in the current situation, how do you actually get that across without it seeing as a negative?
Thank you for that, John.
Right.
I've got Councillor Cowie, followed by Foster, then Payne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question really, it's hard. Well, first of all, and I did enjoy the presentation, it was very good. And I was surprised by the lack of consultation, replies back to it. And I just wondered if you're prepared to make a comment. I see our friend from the media, Richard's there. Good morning, Richard. Just how COVID has affected your whole ability to get out and sell the concept and the idea, to the Clutha district residents. Just whatever may have.
It has made a significant impact. Obviously at this stage, having this, Call Stewart's been appointed, our initial plan was to actually start going around the community groups. Because I know, a number had concerns about what we're trying to achieve and how they fitted in and what it was going to look like and how it can work from that kind of thing. And obviously the COVID-19's stalled a lot of that kind of thing. It's unfortunate, and it's going to have to be deferred, obviously, until we get out of this stage 4 situation, or level 4 situation. But it hasn't stopped us as a trust still progressing the project, I guess, is the key point. We still want to make this happen. We still see there's been significant value for the district going forward. We're just resorting to the likes of yourselves, using Zoom and other methods to make sure that we can continue those engagements and keep the process rolling along.
Just to put, our timeline, we started October 2017, and we have been working really hard to get, we've achieved some significant milestones. We've delivered what you asked us to deliver in the community plan, and we've moved past that as well. So, we're right on schedule with where we aimed to be in around, heading, we're now in stage 3. The annual plan consultation just aligned with where we're at now. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Stu. Councillor Foster.
Thank you both.
Yeah, hi, and congratulations on that presentation. That's really, really impressive, the work you've done so far. my query was around the business hub and what your sort of thoughts are as far as the, again, I suppose selling that to the public. Do you have good interest in that now? Do you think that might sort of change with COVID-19? And also just, you know, are we able to sort of fast track some of the communication out to the public about your relationships with Innovate and those sort of people? So yeah, just selling that point.
Yeah, I mean, it is a tough one. I mean, I guess the business case and our community engagement has indicated, you know, there's a need for the business hub in many respects. The co-working space is something that there has been interest through the likes of Innovate. That she's actually, Heidi's had direct questions herself around, oh, are you coming, you know, to the Clutha district and setting up something down here? So there's obviously demand from that angle. And I think it's, in reality, it's one of those things, it's kind of, you need to have it for people to be interested, if that makes sense. It's one of those things that you need to experience to actually, to understand how it works and how it benefits certain portions of the business community. And so, and I guess just point out too, our business case and our financial planning has been based around that being reconfigurable based on the community's demands. So should, you know, co-working not work it out in the district for a variety of reasons or whatever, we can repurpose that space into tenanted offices or some other retail community driven project to keep that revenue stream coming in and offsetting the costs for the community. So the short answer, I guess, is yes, there has been demand, and portions of it is you know, going to be a case of establishing something, getting the programs into the district, because at the end of the day, especially the co-working aspects of the business hub, you can't just provide a space that looks cool and expect it to work. It's about actually engaging with the community and providing opportunities to actually drive some of that interest, which is why we've established this relationship with Heidi at Innovate. And you know, it kind of has to happen and get the programs in place before we see how it's actually going to fire. But there is a fallback solution if it doesn't, I guess, is the short thing.
And the business hub is an important component in ensuring that as a community-owned asset, we are financially sustainable in the long term. So the rental and the sort of things that can give back to the community, you know, it's a really good opportunity to make this a financially sustainable working model that we hopefully don't have to come back to you down the track for operational costs. I mean, that's what we've based our financial modelling on.
And I guess just to point out,
Councillor Payne, you did have your hand up, but now it's not. Are you wanting in here?
Yeah, Brian, look, thanks. I've just withdrawn my thought process, thinking that I can answer a lot of these questions later on when we sit around the table and discuss it. So I did have a couple of answers for John, but they've mostly been answered, and anything more I'll just answer when we actually deliberate. So no, I have withdrawn my hand.
Thank you for that, Ken. Are there any further councillors? Oh, hold on, Ken, you put your hand back up. Are there any further questions? Councillor Ludeman.
Probably not a question, but I really do want to congratulate Dale and Natasha for the work that they have done. I believe councillors have got no idea the amount of hours that the Trust have put into this project so far, and I just really do want to congratulate them on their presentation. That was great visual images there, and I think something that we actually do have something now to share with the public, but up until this stage they haven't. And I mean, basically as COVID-19 put us into lockdown, these guys had really made their decisions. But I actually, congratulations, you've done a wonderful job. And I mean, there's heaps of community groups that have been out there saying, when can when can they come and visit? So there are ones there wanting to know what's happening. And once we come out of lockdown, I really feel they're ready to roll. So congratulations, guys.
Thanks, Alison.
Thank you for that question, Ali. Are there any further questions? Team, I will say that, look, I know fine well that the councillors are aware of the phenomenal effort that you're putting in as a volunteer group. It's been my privilege to sit in on a couple of meetings, and I've been impressed not only with the professionalism and the transparency and the honesty, it's the passion that you're bringing to it. The fact that I was surprised it was only 3,700 hours. What a blimmin' nuisance that this COVID is cutting across at such a critical time. But I want to thank you on behalf of the district. You're another group that the volunteer hours, the passion, the commitment, the professionalism, I can't thank you enough. I thank you for your presentation and assisting us in what is going to be one of the cornerstone decisions that we will make this year and maybe in this decade or longer. But it is heartening to know that we're dealing with people that are committed, the communities behind them, and I wish you all the very best. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Councillors and presenters, may I suggest that we have a 5-minute break? I don't know if you've noticed, but I miscalculated and the sun's chased me into a corner so that I'm getting blinded now. So if we could have a 5-minute break, I'll rearrange my chair and table and I'll be back with you at 11:57.
Both to the society. So our grounds are used, as you know, by many different sports clubs and many different organisations use the grounds all year, and we're very conscious of it, all the buildings and everything being safe and sound and up to scratch. So that's why we removed the asbestos roof, because it was becoming damaged and there was children noted to be playing on it, etc., etc., and there was some interesting things found on top of it. So we did that, and so our big expense this year would be to re-roof it, which we've had quotes of around $30,000 to re-roof the shed. Our society is run by a very small group of volunteers who are approaching retirement age, and some are retired, semi-retired. So we don't have a great basis to do any fundraising, etc. with. Their main fundraiser is a show, which is a lot of expense and doesn't always come out with a profit of any significant amount. Over the years we have done cattle, raised cattle, buy calves and raise them up, and they're put out onto members' farms to graze till they're 2-year-olds and ready to be killed. And that's been a great fundraiser over the year. However, the people that have been very good at doing that have now retired from their farms or downsized their farms, so they're not able to continue with this in the way that it was. So that was a very good income raiser for us. Our membership is also slowly declining really. We have existing members and we don't really gain any more members through membership for the show. So yeah, so the show's our only revenue, and we run the biggest show in probably the Southern District, really, taking on competitors, and the trade side of our show is very big and important. It's noted to be one of the best shows around for trades, etc. during the season. So we were asking the council to help us for some funding for $20,000 to help re-roof this shed. At the moment, it's just sitting with no roof on. It's just existing rafters and posts and gates underneath, which will be declining with the weather. So we would like to get it done as soon as we could if we can, but yeah, funding is a big thing, and we have a lot of insurance expenses and other expenses during the year as well. And of course, with what's happening in the world right now, we're not sure if we'll even have a show. We don't know when we will know if we can do that this year or not. So it's a little bit up in the air for us all, as it is for everybody, we understand. But, yeah. So I think that's about what I have to say.
Thank you for that, Heather, and it certainly is challenging times. Councillors, we've got a question from Councillor Herbert.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll just get my camera going there. Just looking there, Heather, and one thing that kind of concerns me, and you touched on it, but it looks from the figures that your sponsorship, your membership, your trade displays, your entries are all declining. And I just wondered what systems or thoughts or programs you had in place to try and turn that around, because you know, at some stage you really want to stop the decline and start heading in the other direction. So I just wondered what the committee's aims were there to try and turn things around a little bit, if you were. Thank you.
We do try to our best to. We talk to lots of people about coming and putting in trade displays, and we do our best with that. But at the end of the day, we sort of compete with the field days, especially the one at Waimumu. A lot of the big farming firms would prefer to go there than come to an AMP show for a day. So that's a bit of a battle for us, and we are trying to think of ways around that, but it's not always easy. Sponsorship is very hard to get, and this year I guess it will be even harder for us to do sponsorship. We do talk to lots of people. We approach people personally around the town, and to the bigger organisations we email or approach them by telephone to encourage and ask them if they will sponsor us. And as far as entries goes, well, it's really up to the competitors whether they come or not. We provide a pretty good atmosphere for them, and we do our best to have it safe and everything. So once again, sheep numbers decline a bit because they're like everybody, and it's more the older people that like to show their sheep and not the younger people. And also in that area we compete with the annual ram fair in Christchurch, which generally runs the same week as our show, so that takes a lot of stud breeders away. And then Bovis impacted on us, of course, for 1 year we didn't have any, and then the next year, last year, some of them did come back, but not all of them. So yeah, we've got a few things running against us in that department, really.
Could I be rude and ask what the average age might be of your committee?
Probably 65, 70.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Councillor Finch.
Thank you. Welcome, Heather. Thank you. I just wondered what the total cost of the roof is. Have you priced that out yet? I've got 3 questions.
We did have it priced out. And it was 29,000 something. It was nearly like 30,000.
Right. Okay. And you've got money in the bank. What are you ones going to contribute towards it? Are you only going to, like, if it's 30,000, are you only going to contribute the 10,000?
If we were lucky enough to get some funding, possibly yes. Because our money is kind of, well, it goes into, as I said, we have insurance, which is around 5,000 a year, and we have a small wage for the secretary, and we do have other bills and things that we have to cover during the year. We cover our phone and other things, advertising and things, and then we do need money for the show. because we pay entertainers, and we rely on a lot of sponsorship through grants as well for the show. We go for a grant for using the rec centre and the sound system we've done in the past, and for printing our catalogue. And then we have our schedule costs to cover ourselves and our ribbons and sashes. That's around $1,200 to $1,500 for that. And
yes, I read through all that part, but you've still got quite an amount in the bank. Was I right? Was it 71,000 in the bank you have?
No, I don't think so.
The financials came through late because you didn't have them for a start, and I requested them. That's fine. I'll go back and have a look. Thank you.
It does say, Gaynor, $71,000 cash in bank.
Yeah,
right.
that's what I thought. Yes.
2019, $71,762 in the bank.
Yeah, that's what I had written down. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Would that have been at the end of the financial year before we had the roof removed from the shed? And it was you gave us. We had a grant for money from council for that, and we had money in there for that. And since then, we've spent that.
Not $71,000, I wouldn't think.
We
That's
still
all right.
have the money in the bank.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that, Gaynor. Councillors, are there any further questions? It's becoming quite obvious that the dark shadow of COVID-19 is casting over every business plan and every organisation, Heather, and I sympathise with the challenges that comes to the challenges that existed. I thank you for your presentation, and I wish you well, and to even think, cool, will there be a show this year from it? It's all these, it's a crazy world we live in, but I wish you all the very best, and thanks for assisting us.
Thank you very much.
Councillors, if we could now turn to, I think it's page 10 of submission book 1, where we've got the Catlins Historic Society. We've got Malcolm Devison and Mike McPhee. Where's Malcolm, Mike? There's Malcolm. Have we got Mike as well? Maybe not. Righto, Malcolm. It looks like the floor is yours. You're flying solo. You might have it on mute, I think, Malc. Oh, I think while your audio's working, Malc, the volume level will be right down. Are you able to increase the volume level? That's muted it now. Sorry, Malc, we're now on mute. No. Could I suggest, Larissa, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Larissa, are you able to ring Malcolm, and we will go to the Kai Promotions presentation? Is Joyce there? If we go to the Kai Promotions one, are you able to ring Malcolm and assist him with getting his volume working?
Yeah, no problem with that. I'll just take you into the waiting room, Malcolm, and we'll see what we can do.
I'm sure you got the technicals. Rightio, Joyce. Give me 1 minute, please, while I find out what page you're on.
Page 54, Brian.
Of book 2.
No, book 1.
What?
Can you hear me, Brian?
I can hear you loud and clear, Joyce.
Oh,
Welcome to our submissions. There you have it, page 54. Welcome. Lovely to see you again. I hope you're keeping safe in these challenging times.
I am. I'm in my bubble, and thank you for letting me speak today.
And thank you for the updates you're giving me. But Joyce, the floor is yours.
Right. Well, I'm just here to talk about the Kaitangata War Memorial Hall, as you well know, and I'm representing the Kaitangata and District Promotions, and we are of the opinion that council were interested in demolishing the hall, had set aside money for it, and we were going to have a memorial garden. The reason we're against it going into private hands is that it was originally built as a war memorial for the soldiers, and we don't feel that any other use of it is in the interests of the people who built it. Because it's deteriorating, we think it should be demolished and the garden built. We're sort of against the building going into private hands, because once that happens, you lose the right and have no control over what happens. The state of the building could be left to deteriorate further. It could be a longer time frame to upgrade it. Vehicles could be parked around it, and it is in a central part of our town, and any alterations to the exterior which are not in keeping with the memorial building would be really, we wouldn't be in agreement with that at all. It's not that we're against anyone setting up a business in the town, but if they want to set up a business, we'd like to think they could afford to build their own building and have their business in it. The other interesting fact is it was going to cost about $750,000 to bring it up to an acceptable standard for the community centre to be used by the public. So if the person is going to have public in their building for their cars or whatever, they would need to bring it up to an acceptable code as well. And I'm not sure that $750,000 is just on the horizon at the moment. When it was in the paper, Brian, that an individual wanted to purchase it, we were inundated with calls from the community, and they were going to have a petition, but Bruce suggested we didn't need to go down that track just yet, but that is the feeling of the community. So we just want to say that we're against it going into private hands. We want the council to honour the original promise or thoughts that you had at the time and demolish the hall.
Thank you for that, Joyce. Questions, councillors? Okay. Oh, hold on. Councillor Cowie.
Stick with me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and hello, Joyce.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Not every councillor, like I've been inside that hall, I drive past that hall, and I'm well aware of the state of that hall, but not all the councillors might be aware of what it looks like and what it is like. If you're able to describe it briefly, please. And since it's a sunny afternoon, what would be the kindest thing you could say about the hall, please?
Well, it would be very dark in there at the moment. The birds have got into the kitchen area. There's bird shit all over the place. The toilets aren't working, and it's in a derelict state. It is totally derelict, and to get it up to any kind of standing in the community, it would cost a lot of money.
And the kind thing?
It needs to come down.
Thank you.
There's only one answer to this cold question.
I never thought I'd hear you swearing in a council meeting. Councillor Graham, followed by Herbert, then Jules has got a comment too. So, Bruce.
Hi, Joyce.
Hi, Bruce.
Well done, well done. All I can say is that you're saying is the hall is mutton dressed up as lamb.
It cannot be used for anything at the moment. It is quite derelict.
Yeah, I was speaking to someone in that, and they had been approached to put vehicles in the hall, and the response basically was, what is going to stop them falling through the floor? That be right? The floor's pretty had it too.
There's already a hole been patched in the hall in front of the old bar, and yeah, it's not in good shape at all, and I'd be devastated, as would a lot of other people who were prepared to go into the petition, if it was given to someone who wanted just to use it as a storage shed for vehicles. I think they can get their own shed and build their own.
So the hole in front of the bar wouldn't be from overuse or anything?
I wouldn't think so, Bruce.
No.
Tongue in cheek.
Yeah, no. Well done. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, BG. Over to Councillor Herbert and then Jules.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thanks, Joyce, for your presentation there. Just a quick question, really, and you've outlined the history of the hall there as it was built as a memorial hall, if you like, to the soldiers, and there was an earlier suggestion about a garden. Is there actually a war memorial in Kaitangata? Pardon my knowledge not knowing that, but is there actually a memorial or a monument there? And if not, would that be considered as part of the garden?
There's no other memorial, but at the moment the council have arranged to have the stone that is in front of the memorial hall, a replica, put at the new community centre, and that has been achieved. But we now haven't got an Anzac Day service, so someone is going to have to consecrate that stone on Anzac Day, which I think Alex is going to talk to Brian about that. But no, we have no other memorial.
You don't have would there be a desire, do you think, from the community to have a memorial with the soldiers' names on it? You'll have honours boards.
Oh, yeah. No, we have honours boards, and they've all been redone by a local chap, and they're in the new community centre. So all the honours boards are already done up in their new place.
Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah.
I thought the entranceway into the new hall with those stunning honour boards has been so respectfully done. I thought it was gorgeous, Joyce.
It is. It's great.
Now we've got Jules.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to inform Joyce and the meeting that this was actually on the agenda originally for the 2nd of April council meeting for council to make a determination, but with the change in the issues with COVID-19, it's been deferred to the next council meeting. So both the future of the Memorial Hall and the old borough building are definitely on council's agenda to make a decision, and that will be coming up at the next available council meeting.
Thanks for that, Jules.
Thank you for that. Bruce, you've still got your hand up. I presume that's just a relic from the past. I'll go to Councillor Ludeman.
Hi, Joyce. How are you?
Hi, good. Thanks, Alison.
I've had people ask about a miners' monument from. Would that be able to go in that garden there as well, or would that need to be? I'm just, checking on that just while I've got the opportunity to.
Well, what we envisage is that it will be a green area, and we are hoping to have some boards with information on them about Kaitangata, about the train and the steam boat on the river, and we're raising money for that with the sale of our books at the moment. So it would be a garden area with seats, but we do hope to have some information panels on that.
Okay. No, just that I understand there's a couple of miners still living, and we're keen to actually see some kind of a miners' monument. So I just thought this was maybe a chance to raise that. No.
Yeah, no, that could well be part of the information boards and the artwork.
Right, thanks.
Any further questions, councillors? If not, Joyce, it's always lovely to see you. Hope you're staying safe and well in your bubble. I thought you were looking rather dapper on the TV the other night.
Oh,
I was wondering what you were going to say about us. But it is always positive.
Yeah, I hope so, Brian.
And no, always positive. And thank you for what Kai Promotions does and getting that vitality and positivity through your town. And thank you for assisting us in our endeavours today.
Well, I'd just like to thank council for their support. You've always been right behind anything we do, and Kai and Promotions are very grateful for that.
Thank you. Stay safe and healthy.
Good on you. Bye.
Bye. Now, Larissa. Where's Larissa? Malcolm. How are we?
Well, how are we? How are you going now? I've done all I can with this computer.
The floor is yours, Malcolm.
Can you hear us?
Certainly can.
You certainly can. Oh, okay.
Excuse me a moment just before we start, Malcolm. We've just had someone else join us just now, and it's popped up as owner. I wonder if that's Mike. Just wondering if the person that's popped up as owner could turn their sound on and say hello.
Yeah.
No.
The guest called owner, we're just trying to identify you rather than owner. Could owner please turn the video on and enter and sign in, please?
Yeah, it's Mike McPhee, Brian.
That's what we were hoping for. How are you, Mike?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we've
good,
got the
thank you.
tag team here at last. Well done.
Okay.
Councillors,
Sorry.
page 10 of book 2, I think, or book 1. Where the heck am I? Page 10 of book 1. And welcome, Mike and Malcolm. Sorry for that mix up with the microphone, Malcolm, but we're here and the floor is yours.
Cheers, thank you, Brian. Kia koutou. Yeah, I'm on behalf of the Catlins Historical Society. I'm a member of the executive committee these days. Last 3 or 4 years, I've been helping them with some of the boring bits that nobody else wants to do, like constitutions and strategic plans and submissions. So yeah, we've got a couple of small bits to talk to you about, really. You've had some heavy stuff this morning, so you won't mind us being brief, probably. It partly reminds you too that the Historical Society is there, that we have a joint arrangement with the council to run that complex. You'll be well aware of that, and you'll be well aware of the importance of Owaka to Catlins tourism. We might have to talk about tourism a bit later, but certainly that complex has seen a growth of activity over the last 3 or 4 years, especially. Mike is our current museum manager, last 14 months. And the other introductory thing I wanted to say was that over the last 2 or 3 years, we've started to have meetings with John Scott and the team, between them and the executive committee of the Historical Society, and we've done really well. I think we've shown a good level of cooperation, so we know what's happening, and probably this submission comes out of that meeting and discussions around the table there. So we have 3 or 4 meetings a year, by the way, for that group. I'm hoping you've got the piece of paper that I sent. That's just a 1-pager. I wonder if you have the statistics too in your booklets. Do you have some of that statistics of visitor numbers? You might or you might not. No odds. You probably won't have the actual lease that I'm going to be talking about, but I can answer the questions as I say. So there's 2 points we just want to make. There has been a lease since the new complex was built in 2007. The council have had a lease with us to do their business in the complex that's owned by the Historical Society, the library, the service centre, and yeah, well, that's the council's part of the outfit. And the lease is I'm looking at it now. It's an 18-20 document that outlines how some of the arrangements between the 2 groups. The key point that we are asking you about this round is that lease is due again for revision in April next year, and the money involved on the lease was 6,500 per annum plus GST. As I've said in my submission, we've been a bit remiss and nobody's thought to have a look at that for a wee while. So that lease, in fact, was due to be looked at every 3 years, and the council's got away with it because we haven't actually had a discussion about that sort of money. So we're suggesting, please, that lease number needs to go up a wee bit. Mike's done the numbers on consumer price index and how much things might have gone up in that time, and and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I think he's got to a point of a wee bit over $8,000 just on consumer price index without considering any other factor about increased workload or whatever. This lease is a bit of a it's a very good document, but it's as we've discussed with John Scott, it's very hard to put a figure on a business lease of this type. It's a fairly unusual arrangement and a fairly unusual business to try and work out what a business would cost for you as the council to hire in a WACA would be pretty tricky. I think it's a benefit to the council to have us providing the base for your work in the district rather than you have to build something for yourself. So that's the point of the lease, I guess, isn't it? That's basically the first point. Can you please reconsider the number that the lease is happening, and perhaps we've got till April next year to finalise the figure, and perhaps that group can sort of rediscuss this with your advice about the sort of number. Is that all right for point one? Then the second point, as we've, just as well as that on the first point, the lease actually has a section that says what part of a variety of things like gas, rubbish collection, fire service charges, provision of toilets. It has a list of things like that at the last joint meeting between the groups, we thought we were getting a bit confused about what that was, and that really needs to be relooked at too. So I guess that gets passed back from your end to John Scott to keep talking to us about that. There's percentages of how much the council should pay and how much the Historical Society should pay in terms of that, in terms of the outgoings, as well as the release number. So you're keen on the budget number, I guess, in the end of things. So I think that there needs to be some allowance for that too. But as I say, we can't exactly say without further discussions, and that would happen before April next year, as to how much that might be. John might be in a better position to give some indication of how much that might be. So that's point one. Point two is just a comment. We've noticed if you've got the library, the visitor number figures off Vicky Darling's spreadsheet that she prepared for us all, that there is a sort of an increase in visitor numbers over the last 3 or 4 years especially, and that the WACA, the visitor numbers coming through WACA from sort of November through to March, April, even May, I think, the numbers coming through WACA are even higher than the numbers going through Clutha. A nice visitor centre might change that if that happens, but that's a wee way down the track. So we're saying that sometimes our manager is not getting much time to do museum work on those times when there's pressure on the desk in WACA, and the group was wondering whether you'd consider some sort of further staffing from the council's end. We appreciate that that's your decision to make, but we would like to note to you that there is a huge pressure of numbers even when Steph as the council person and Mike are at the desk. There might be some business being lost too from the council's end, because it takes some time to get some of those bookings placed and things that Steph does. So that's basically it. We need Mike to get on to the museum work, and there is some backlog there that we need. So that'll do. That's all I need to say. Just remind you that there's a whole lot of volunteers out here in WACA to support this community group, like many of the people you've heard this morning. We've got about 45 people manning the weekends, yeah, I guess we're reminding you of that. Certainly happy to take questions.
So just before questions, Mike, do you have anything
Mike
you wish
wants
to add?
to add? Yep.
No, I think Malcolm's covered everything in it, and it's all there on the written submission as well, Brian. Yeah, it's just that the lease arrangement was kind of overlooked, and it needs to be reviewed. And as you'll see in the submission there, that it's time to have a good hard look at that. And we think an increase is overdue, really.
Your generosity has been overwhelming, Mike. I couldn't rent a house off you, could I? Councillor Herbert, followed by Payne.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Malcolm and Mike, for your presentation there. My quick question is around the rent, and you've made, there's quite a bit in your submission, and you've talked about it now. In the clause in the lease, does it mention CPI adjustment, or is it a market or inflation? What is the mechanism that's actually mentioned in the lease?
No, it just says that it's due for a review every 3 years, and then it needs a major review every 7th year. So that's
to gauge normally in sorry.
Yeah, that's what we're coming up to in 2021. Yeah.
So it doesn't mention anything in the lease as to what mechanism will be used to set that rent at those rent review dates.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
No,
it doesn't. CPI adjusted inflation or market rent or anything like that. It hasn't got anything by mechanism by which to use.
No, not that I can see, and not that I've seen. No, it just says review every 3 years.
Thank you.
Can I say, John, probably because I've been around too long, that I well remember when the group was first setting up, and it was our first tentative step as a council to have a symbiotic relationship with a community group, and it was tentatively feeling our way. It was groundbreaking for the council to enter in like this, and consequently, you know, okay, we might not have been that sharp on where we were going with the lease, but it was more getting up and running. So I think it's just morphed that way.
Yeah, I fully appreciate that, and probably look, it's just the world that I live in. A lot of times it's in the lease and it's written in black and white. So there's no, you don't end up in these situations. But not taking away the good work that's been done down there, and it's a minor amount, and it's probably just something to go forward that maybe it could be included next time, that it takes some of the grey area out. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for that, John. Councillor Payne. Might have your mute on, Kenny.
Sorry, I'm not good at this today. I'll put my camera on as well. Welcome, Malcolm and Mike, and thanks for your presentation. Enjoyed that. I just want to ask a question about the staffing, I guess. In light of the COVID and what's in front of us, the unknown, I'm just wondering, have you got any ideas of what the domestic tourist, or the numbers of domestic tourists that go through the facility as opposed to international? Yeah, I guess that's the question.
Yeah, I'll answer from what I know, and then Mike will tell you the real story probably. But I thought of that question beforehand, because that's significant, isn't it? If there's a substantial number of domestic tourists, we may not be as badly off as could be envisaged. So we are keeping records of where people come from. So we should be able to dig out that information. I don't have it at the moment. Perhaps Mike knows whether that's how easily that is to access. But yeah, there is some numbers from different places. I know as volunteer weekends, my wife is always embarrassingly asking where people come from. So we do have that. Mike?
Yeah, those figures are kept by Steph Brunton. Each person who comes in is asked where they're from. So those figures will be with the council. I don't have them, but I did see, just generally regarding tourism, there were over 4 million visitors come to New Zealand last year, overseas visitors, and there were around about 3 million New Zealand people who left the country taking overseas holidays. So if those 3 million people stay in New Zealand and take a holiday within the country, then maybe the tourism situation won't be so bad. You know, we may only be losing 25% of our tourists. If all those New Zealanders take an internal holiday, it will just about make 75% of the foreign tourists that we would have expected. So that will be interesting to see if that works out.
It's been quite interesting, Councillor Payne. Central government's obviously turning their mind to it. And there was the comment made that domestic tourism makes up for around our area over 60% of the tourists. And last year, international tourists brought $14 billion to New Zealand, but New Zealanders spent $16 billion overseas. So we're actually spending more than we're getting. And I think the Catlins is well placed to be able to be that wee jewel that someone in the North Island may never have visited, and now's a good time to do it.
Yes,
I'd agree.
Hey guys.
Cheers,
Yeah, I'd agree. I just wonder if is there a slightly bigger advertising budget possible for us to make sure people know about that hidden gem.
I'm sure that, well, I do know for sure that central government's looking at the wider package, and something that other councils are considering. And you know, we've had all of 20 days to get our head around the situation.
Yeah, yeah.
Councillors, is there any further questions? If not, team, look, I really love, I came down and spent a day with Mike when we were doing the submissions, and I love that cohesion, the way the community is working in with the council. And we've had a 13-year relationship, probably actually even longer, without one hiccup. And that's due to the attitude, and it's typical of the attitude of the Catlins, that you just get on and do it. And I want to acknowledge the working relationship we have and the efforts that you go to make your town and the wider district a welcoming place. So thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah.
Okay, all the best, guys. Keep safe. Councillors, we've now got Project Bruce. Kim, welcome. Lovely to see you here. Bear with me a minute while Project Bruce is on page 103 of book 1. Somewhere here.
Hi, team. Hi there. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can, Kim. Welcome to the submissions process. Lovely to have you along. The floor is yours.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Brian. Lovely to be here again. And for those of you who don't know me, anybody that's new to council, I'm Kim Schiller. I'm the community development worker for Project Bruce, and we're based in Milton at the Toko Community Hub. So since last year, we've had a few developments. I spoke at last year's submission, and at that stage, we had a lot of good ideas and good intentions and a great foundation and framework to be working from. And we had had some workshops and some events underway as well, which was really great. But since then, we've kind of just gone in an exponential curve upward with our projects, and a lot of those ideas have come to fruition. So I think in the document that I sent, I've outlined a few of our more significant kind of projects. We've got amazing sustainability raft of things happening. One of the big things being the trapping project of predators over at Tauri Mouth with the Tauri Mouth Motorata whānau. And Catherine, my co-worker, is doing lots of really great sustainability workshops, and she's actually become more and more invaluable to me and with our other projects as well as we get busier. So we're running our Heteroglossia little arts publication. We've got another edition of that ready to come out after lockdown finishes. We've got ninja training again this year for our young people, which was hugely successful last year. We've got a community garden that's growing and growing, and we've still got about an acre of potatoes in the ground ready to pull up for the community, and that is being developed as well over the winter in a permanent spot over by the shed at the back of the showgrounds, so it's looking pretty beautiful already. We've also got the Bruce Community Shed, which is taken off and has been the workshop's being built with the, in collaboration with the South Otago Heritage Society. So the shed is beautiful. We've had loads of donations of tools, and that will be, hopefully not long after lockdown, will be operational for community projects with the members that are working in there. We've also had a free day, which was really successful. We had hundreds of people through the door to have access to treats, which were provided by all our lovely volunteers and business people and services around the Bruce district, who came and gave their time and skills to make people feel great for a day, which was fabulous. And of course, the one we're particularly proud of is our Feeding Our Kids initiative, which is the collaboration with the Otago Corrections Facility. So we take, we get rescue food from Kiwi Harvest in Dunedin, who are a food rescue organisation, drop it into the prison, and some of the prisoners there make it into beautiful, nutritious lunches for our kids who aren't getting enough. So we're feeling pretty good about what we've achieved in the last year. We've also delivered double the amount of workshops that we said we would when we at the outset of the project. The pop-ins into the hub here have quadrupled since we've been operating, and we've increased our social media audience by about 400%, and it's climbing all the time. So things are going well. We're collaborating with lots of the different local organisations and individuals, even as far afield as the Otago Polytech, who gave us some students last year to work on some projects. And we're also building really strong relationships with the other community development organisations around Otago and Southland as well. So it's a really supportive sort of crew of people. Of course, the reason I'm here is I was last year, but much more crucial this year, is that we don't have enough money. We've just finished the Department of Internal Affairs Community Development Scheme funding, which was for 3 years. And due to the way we've been structured with Milton Community Health Trust as our umbrella organisation, we have, and the hub here is also the umbrella by them. So we've split apart. We've now got our own board, the Project Bruce Charitable Trust. So we've retained some of the members, Janine Basquin from Tyree Mouth, Bruce and Dale Wyber. We've also picked up Katie Moody from the high school, Anna Smith from the hub, and Ruth Ratcliffe, formerly of Clutha Youth. And we have Annabelle Phelps from the Youth Council, and also Robert Wilson. So we've got a really amazing bunch of people who have stepped forward to take Project Bruce into the future. So what we're doing now is working really hard to find some money. And I sent out a budget, which has changed a little bit since I sent it. We've had $10,000 granted to us by the Trust Community Foundation. But we've also had ANZ Staff Foundation, which is a big contributor to our project costs. They've put their grant process suspended because of the COVID situation. So a bit of a win and a loss. But what we've got is, when we shave it all down, projects aside, where our operating costs are about $104,000, and we have $46,000 of that so far. So we're in deficit of about $60,000. So we're working really hard to apply to all of the major funders, and Lottery Communities has given us $25,000, which we're hugely grateful for, but obviously there's still a long way to go. And having to spend all our time working on funding applications, and to be honest, we're running out of big funders to approach. It's quite taxing and takes us away from being able to actually do the work that we're intended to do. So here we are pleading our case, and we'd really love the council to consider investing in Project Bruce's survival. We feel like we are only sort of just beginning the work that we could potentially do. We've got no community board here in the Bruce ward, and so kind of a lot of the community sees Project Bruce as the go-to kind of place to fill that role. And there was an article in the Otago Daily Times a little while back that talked about our funding situation, and unfortunately the article they didn't have enough room for the whole thing, and it was cut off halfway through, which made it seem quite dramatic and panicky. And we had a massive response of people rushing in and panicking and wanting to know who they could write letters to and how to keep us going. So we feel like we really do have the support of the community. And last year at the submission, I believe the question was, where did I think the money was going to come from for Project Bruce? And the rates obviously was the main source. And I think we feel really strongly that our community wants us to be here. All of our projects are community led. So nothing that we've done, we've come up with ourselves. Every idea and every project has been from our communities coming in and asking for support and how to get these things off the ground. So we see ourselves as a real agent of sort of positive change. And I think, just to wrap it up, the COVID-19 situation has really highlighted the need for increased resilience and connection and well-being measures to be put in place. We've been quite involved with the response. We rushed around in the days before lockup and put together a spreadsheet of what business was operating and how people could be in touch and pay and the parameters what those businesses could provide. And we've been updating that as new information comes in, and we're still connected very much to the services that are being provided for the town food bank and elder age concern. So we're kind of ongoing from our kitchens and lounges and trying to hold it together as best we can during this time. But it, yeah, really highlights the need for people to have those connections and options during a time like this. So yeah, so that's pretty much all I've got to say. Just love to thank you once again for your support over the last year. We certainly feel like we've got a lovely relationship with the council, and hope to continue that into the future.
Thank you for that, Kimmy. Councillor Finch.
Thank you. Welcome, Kim. Great things you are doing in Milton for the whole community. Congratulations, and good today. Well done. What are you going to do with the potatoes when you dig them is my first question.
Nice. What we're going to do, well, we already dug about 3 or 4 rows of them with the old machinery because we're really heavily involved with the vintage machinery club, which is great, and we're getting the high school involved so that the young junior young farmers are learning about the old machinery from the vintage guys, which is fantastic. But we'll be picking them up and then distributing them via the hub. We've got a free market here. So we have produce and some bread that comes in from Countdown and Mosgiel each Tuesday, and people can come in and help themselves. Yeah. We'll take a gold coin donation if people are able to, just to provide costs for machinery and things for next year. But yeah, get them out of the ground and onto the shelf.
Well done. It's a great initiative. How many more workshops do you envisage doing this year, possibly?
We'd hope to do probably another 15 or 20. We had 3 lined up that we had to cancel, unfortunately, due to the lockdown. We had a journalism workshop that we were doing in conjunction with the Clutha leader. What else did we have? We had we have Death Cafe. Death Cafe had to be cancelled, and Bangladeshi cooking class, which we'll do them once we can get out of lockdown. But so yeah, hopefully another 15 to 20.
Well done. And I had displayed this that you did to council at our meeting. Well done. It's really good. So are you having people in the community, when it's being updated, re-delivering them, or is it just updated on your Facebook page now?
Updated on the Facebook page, and we're putting that on the Milton online as well. We sort of had to toss up whether even delivering them was going to be okay, but everybody gloved up and masked up and popped the letterbox drop. So just for the people that don't have access to technology, you've got to sort of think about covering every aspect.
Yeah, well done. Thank you very much for your presentation. Good luck. Stay safe in this bubble.
Thank you.
Councillors, any further questions? It looks not.
No, that's easy.
That is too easy, Kim. Hey, look, can I say, and I'm not saying this in a derogatory manner to Milton, it is just statistics and my life observations have seen that of all the towns in our community, Milton has some social dynamics that are more apparent, and the challenges of our second largest town aren't, they're just different. They're most definitely different. And one question I do have is, over the last 3 or so weeks, because as you know, I pop in and see you from time to time, and I see the throng of people coming through the door that on a daily basis have you as part of their resilience network, their strength. How do you believe Milton is handling the situation at the moment, especially those most challenged?
I think the safety net that the service, Milton's, you know, it does have its challenges, but it's also an extremely proud and tight-knit community. And if there's a problem, people give generously and without thinking, and it's great. And so we have a whole lot of volunteers who are happy to make phone calls, do shopping. We've got the St. John's Caring Callers. Once again, the food bank have been amazing. There's a real core of people who make sure that everyone's looked after. And with our little thing that we distributed with the businesses, hours and things on it, we've got phone numbers, and there's a network out. I have to say our primary schools have been amazing, and sometimes my children attend Milton Primary School, so I got to catch up with quite a few of the parents, especially some of the more vulnerable families, you know, through a Zoom session. I think we're actually coping really well. I'm really proud of our town, and people have been getting in touch and chatting, and we've been keeping in touch as much as we can via social media. But I think we're probably doing pretty well.
Well done, Kim. And look, to you and Catherine and Anna, I think the job you do is amazing up there. Over the years, certainly in the time that you've been up and running, I've watched Milton change, and there is a strength, and you can be proud of what you've achieved. I thank you for coming and giving your presentation today. Keep safe in your bubble.
You too.
And all the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Cheers.
Okay, councillors, to the last presentation of the day, which is Book 2, page 1, Kevin Barron. Kevin, floor is yours. Are you there, Kevin? I see you've got the mute off, but the volume's just not there, Kevin. Larissa, do you have any way of contacting Kevin to assist?
Yes, I've just texted him as well. I've actually turned his mute off for him. So I might just turn it off just now and just give him a wee moment to get back in touch.
So Larissa, do you want us to just hold fire, or should I take a break for 5 minutes?
If you'd like to take a break, by all means. What we are conscious of is the 1 p.m. announcements happening today that I know that you, most of you will be quite keen to make sure that you listened to. But I perhaps if we can just take a moment, stretch your legs, and I will double check in with Kevin just now.
Thank you. We'll be here in 1 minute's time. Cheers.
Kevin's just about to join us now.
Thank you for that. Are you there, Kevin? You are on mute. You may just put a Kevin there.
How's that?
Yep, that's perfect. Well done. Welcome. Floor is yours, Kevin.
Thank you. I heard the submissions of Natasha and Dale, so that was good. The objective of my submission is to ask that option 1 is revisited with the purpose of retaining the Memorial Hall part of the existing site. It would take longer than 5 minutes to discuss fully the benefits of this objective, so I'll cover 3 points on behalf of some ratepayers and from the Clutha district in relation to the development of the total community hub. So the first point is the retention of the existing Memorial Hall. Retention of the existing Memorial Hall should be seen as an obligation to honour the past, a commitment to those whose voluntary labour and donated goods went into the building, and a legacy for the future generations. The foundation stone of the Memorial Hall states, the building erected by the residents of Clutha and nearby districts commemorates those who gave their lives on active service. In our work lies their monument. So it states clearly that this should be a guiding light that governs the retention of the hall in my eyes. If you could just imagine your grandchildren's children exploring the Memorial Hall in years to come and hearing the past stories of the servicemen and women of Clutha who sacrificed their lives during the Second World War, and those who returned to build this hall as a memorial to their sacrifice, it would make the hairs on the back of their neck stand up and be ever grateful that the hall had been retained. Also, the story relating to the architecture of the day, of the building blocks that went into the structure being made 500 metres from the site, and the sand that made the blocks from gravel dredged from the Clutha River, not more than 100 metres away, along with the timber floors milled at the site where the now Rosebank Lodge stands. And finally, the story of the effort and fundraising that went into preserving the hall for heritage purposes and combining it with a community hub in what is now called a throwaway world. The reason the hall was built and the building of the hall itself represents a legacy about the history of Clutha that would have many benefits for past, present and future generations. This history, together with the size of the hall and the magnificent floor that gets credits from all who use it, would be hard to duplicate in a new structure. As mentioned in my written submission, of the 439 submissions from Clutha ratepayers pertaining to the hall, only 13 respondents opted for the existing hall to be demolished. This fact alone from a community-led project should be enough to prepare and present an option of the hall being retained. The second point is costs, and I have some questions here. Should the costs be the determining factor of not pursuing the retention of the existing hall? Have the 35 that lost their lives not paid the price for the hall? And should we as ratepayers not continue to honour their monument? And should a nil impact on ratepayers be a goal in the funding of the hall? Anyone can pull a building down and build a new one, but the forward-thinking ratepayers of the Clutha could see the merits in retaining a structure for future generations. The world over, historic buildings are retained and maintained to allow individuals to reminisce and marvel at what was achieved by generations that went before them. I have exposed a similar example of this in my written submission. Demolishing a building of this size and replacing it would be equal to or greater cost than renovating the existing building to meet all the building codes and aesthetic requirements to enhance the hall to meet and exceed the ratepayers' expectations. By innovative engineering and design, combining the renovation of the hall and adding the other facilities required to meet the hall's future activities, the cost should not be the only determining factor. Innovative design and engineering could see the renovated community hub built in stages, and each stage would excite the ratepayers as the project progresses. This allows costs to be spread and sponsors to be motivated to get involved in the same way that the original hall was funded. Properly implemented, it is proposed that this method could see the cost of the renovations having a nil impact on the ratepayers of Clutha. And I think there was some talk about the COVID-19 impact, but when the need is great enough and you're prepared to pay the price, the money seems to be available, as we can witness by the $20 billion being spent to keep us free from that virus. The third point is the design. The written submission that I included, included concepts of a design that were not intended to be what the outcome would look like, but a catalyst to encourage further exploration into retaining the existing hall while including all the elements that the ratepayers' submissions had requested. The use of a structural cathedral-like foyer to meet the new building standards, the flyer tower to maximise views, the access to the river to encourage walking and appreciation of its impact on the Clutha district, the auditorium for national and international acts, a cinema for the young, not so young, and visitors, the eyesight, historical displays, RSA recognition, kitchen facilities, meeting rooms, visitors lounge, etc., can all be combined in a modern state-of-the-art facility, adding to the existing hall in a way that would retain the hall and the people it commemorates, along with the requirements for future generations. So in summary, I say retain the Memorial Hall as a recognition of those it commemorates and a memorial to be cherished for future generations. While the opportunity still exists, explore a design that retains the Memorial Hall and exploits its advantages with a cost structure that has a nil impact on ratepayers, and develop an innovative design utilising the hall as the memorial while combining all the community requests as outlined for option 2. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for that, Kevin. Please also, it was said that you felt that you had a time restraint. This process takes priority and you'll have the time that any other presenter does. So do not feel impinged by time. If you have anything else you want to say before questions.
No, I'm just saying that to sit down and discuss it with the community group and the councillors involved, to look at a design that involved keeping the hall, it's hard to explain it. It needs to be visual and written and talked about around a table rather than just over a Skype interview like this. That was what I was saying. It would be good to have that opportunity.
Okay, well, I open it up to questions. Councillors, questions? No one's got any questions. Rightio, I'll take that. Kevin, once again, thank you for the deliberation and the time that you put in here. We appreciate the fact that you're assisting us and you're passionate in your cause. Stay safe in your bubble and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, that brings an end to the formal part of the process. Larissa or Steve, what I was suggesting is another stretch of the legs, and then do we just have an informal discussion? Is that what was being considered?
Brian, I was just thinking we should have a break maybe for 45 minutes or whatever to listen to the 1 o'clock announcement. And then you wanted a bit of a briefing about a couple of things and maybe a general discussion.
Can I suggest, Steve, we'll get the gist of the announcement, and if we started back up at 1:30, I'm mindful of the fact that everyone's sitting by a computer when they've probably got 1,001 other things to do.
No
So,
problem. Ready? Yep.
If we have a break now, and if everyone could please be back by 1:30. Thanks, everyone. G'day, how are you? All right, I think. Hey, are you now restricted because you